Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined Doctor Who as he travels through time and space and arrives at episode number 290. I'm Keith.
I'm twitching.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I'm good.
Twitching?
Twitching.
Did you guys have a good week?
I had a fine week. It was okay. I didn't remember anything I did, so it must have been a good week.
What level are you on?
Too much Pokemon
20.
Go.
I broke 20 last night.
Broke 20?
Yeah, I'm level 20
nice.
last
Congrats.
night.
I'm 15.
Ooh, nice. Wow, you really advanced then, didn't you?
Yeah.
You were quite a bit behind me when you started.
What level were you on last week? 5?
I don't remember 5.
It gets harder and harder to level up the higher you get to because the experience
That's usually
is
how
so
it
much,
is.
but
Well, because I had caught so much junk,
you rolled a
mainly
bunch of crap.
Pidgeys, I pulled a page out of your playbook. I played my lucky egg and then evolved a bunch of them, so I got double experience
Double
for it
XP.
while I was sitting at a lured Pokestop.
That's how you do it. And catching more Pokemon.
Kind of double whammied everything, so it was like ling, ding, ding. Yeah, give me the points. Of course, Mel is still ahead of me, but you know.
I didn't do much either.
Keith, are you on the Pokewagon
Still
yet?
not on the Pokewagon.
Why aren't you on the Pokewagon, Keith?
Just don't have any interest in it.
Aw.
Yeah. I know a lot about it. Just not playing it.
Because Audie's playing it now, right?
He's going to with his dad.
Ah.
But he knows about it, and they were talking about it. And I've just picked up a lot through osmosis, and when that's
All the news stories we've been running this week.
Glenn's
that's
talking about it
all
at work.
Well, he's not been too bad.
I try to keep it on the down low at work, and
At least until the boss leaves.
I'm afraid that. I'm afraid there's so many people now playing at work that somebody's gonna get in trouble for it. We're all gonna get dinged for it. So I always play pretty incognito at work when I can. Keith knows I'm playing because he knows the sounds now. But
Well, and when your social media feed is filled with Pokemon stuff, you kind of...
nothing for me though. I post on a group that I'm on. And that's pretty much it. I don't put it in my normal feed.
I was so excited. I have not one but 2 Pokestops at the station, and they are just far enough I can't catch them at my desk.
Oh no!
So I actually have to walk up to the front of the building, and that looks suspicious.
From my desk,
stretching your legs.
From my
Every
desk,
5 minutes.
from my desk, I can hit the Pokestop, but every once in a while the GPS will go wonky and he'll wander out of the thing. So I just turn off the Wi-Fi and turn the Wi-Fi back on, and it repositions my GPS. He goes back into the area. So.
Your desk is kind of at the back of the building.
I am.
So
I'm all the way at the back of the building, and these are all the way at the front. So.
The kids finally took their first gym tonight, so they actually chose Mystic. They went against their dad and chose Team Blue.
Give me a fist bump here.
Anyway, are you Blue?
Yeah.
So we got over to we went to Gage Park tonight, and Mason can play if I hotspot him, and he is with his iPad. And unfortunately, I think there was just so many people at Gage because we went to the Rhinage Road Guard because that's where they drop lures all the time. And we were going to walk around there and get Pokemon, but Mason's GPS just would not. It kept going out. So we hotspotted him to Caitlin to see if that would help, and it didn't. So we just wondered if there was just so many people around there that because he doesn't have a phone, it was wigging his GPS out. So we got in the car and actually drove around Gage Park and got some Pokestops. And once we got away from Gage Park, his GPS was back. So we drove down just kind of through the city and hit some Pokespots on the way. And we'd stop every once in a while where it looked like there was some activity and get some. And then finally they said, I said, there's this gym over here. It's a 2-level gym. And it's Instinct, which is the third team. So I said, we can all tackle that together and we aren't fighting against each other. And then, we'll see who gets... I knew I was going to get the gym because I've got massive Pokemon. But Caitlin was playing and I was playing, and we got the gym down. And so she says, well, what do I do now? I said, well, you claim it. Get in there. So I said, go ahead and get in there. So she got in there and set hers. And, of course, Mason set one. He didn't even battle. He just set one in because she got the prestige up so that you could put 2 in it. Or I guess between the 2 of us, we'd knock the prestige down. But so he just threw one in there, and then he was higher than her. His CP was higher, so he's sitting at the top of the gym, and she's the next level down. She was a little miffed by that because she took the gym down. And I said, you know what? I could probably take this from you, but you guys earned that, and we're just going to leave it. So we took off. I don't know if they've still got it. I'm sure there was a level 2 gym they had very low CB Pokemon in it, so I'm sure it's probably been taken over again. I thought it's not too far. I thought about driving by there on my way home tonight and seeing if they're still in it. But if some other blue team players had come behind them and bolstered it up, then they'll be in there for a while, as long as somebody doesn't come over and take it again. So,
well, 3 in the morning apparently is when red team goes on their rampages.
I don't know that's true. I think it. Well, that was.
Keep
true.
in mind, I'm getting a bunch of
true.
blue team propaganda from
That
the
was.
other household
I
members.
think that certainly. I think that certainly was true. I think though that last night Instinct must have made a push, because I woke up this morning and there was yellow gyms all over town. I had never seen so many yellow gyms in my life, and I thought, where did these guys come from?
Denver was all yellow. Just
really?
everywhere we went was yellow. And I was like, well, it's kind of a different change for what it is back home, because here they're primarily red and blue going at it. Every now and then you'll see a yellow one crop up, but Denver was all yellow.
I put my Valor shirt on to head to the park tonight. Well representing. That's it. I've been playing Pokemon all week. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I haven't done anything else, but I really can't. I didn't watch anything this week. I didn't even watch any shows. I've been trying to keep, other than what I get at work, I've been trying to keep the news off because it's been so depressing. So.
Yeah, me too. Of course, I do that all the time anyways.
Yeah.
I've been reading a lot. Over 200 pages in the game, Clash of Kings now.
Oh.
Yeah. And then started on...
moving fast.
Yeah, I'm moving through it quicker than I did Game of Thrones. And I'm really liking it. It's really good so far. And started Showstoppers last night, because I had to work overnight. So. And I've been mainlining Season 2 of The Leftovers, and it is so good. Oh, it's even better than Season 1. It is incredible, some of the storytelling they're doing in this. And insane. I've got 3 episodes left for the season, which, considering I started it like 2 Saturdays ago, for me is really
quick,
good.
yeah.
That is good.
That's how good it is. And I was hoping to watch another one tonight, but I didn't have time before coming to record. Yeah.
So you worked overnight last night?
Saturday night into Sunday morning.
So you're probably tired.
Yeah. So probably in the last 36 hours, I've gotten like 5 hours of sleep.
Well, I'll keep what I did brief.
No, what'd you do, Shaun? It sounds like you had quite the adventure.
I did. We went to Denver.
How was Denver?
Denver was cool.
Did you see my sister?
Actually, Denver was not cool. I don't like Denver, quite honestly.
You don't like Denver?
I don't like Denver. I didn't see your sister.
Huh.
Not that your sister has anything to do with Denver not being cool, but
I've never been to Denver, so when I go, I'll have to report back and see if you're wrong or not.
it's one of those things that, you go to different places and they have that atmosphere. Chicago's got a really cool atmosphere, I think, and L.A. and different places. Like Denver's supposed to be one of those kinds of places, and it's not. It's just a big city.
My sister likes it a lot.
Their claim to fame is the mountains, and there aren't any in Denver. I mean, like, we're mile high. Yeah, but it's still flat. You're just at the top of the slope.
My sister can see the mountains from her apartment.
Yeah, they're over there.
You can see them. Yeah.
They're just not here.
You see them from just about anywhere in Denver, but
It's because they're big. But we did a quick trip. We went down, actually spent a little bit of time in Breckenridge and then Frisco, which is my second home, eventually the first home. And then came back to Denver for a Sting and Peter Gabriel concert.
How was the concert?
Oh my God, it was so cool. It was wonderful. It's probably the second best concert I've ever been to, only behind Paul McCartney.
Wow. Is this your first time seeing them?
Yeah. Yeah, and then as soon as I found out, I bought tickets, and I told him, I was like, drop whatever you're doing, we're going to go see Gabriel. Sting's an added bonus, but I'm going to go see Gabriel. And they didn't have any, I jumped on as soon as I could. They didn't have any seats together anywhere but up in the nosebleeds. I was like, okay, whatever. So we got in, and the stage is this little postage stamp down below, and they had these big video screens on either side of it. And our seats are one row from the roof. So we're one row down from the top row of seats. So far around the horn that we're actually kind of behind one of the video screens looking down on this postage stamp stage. You can't really see because there's a video screen in the way. And Mel looked at me and she goes, these seats suck. Like, yeah, but you know what? We're in the building. I'm not going to complain about it. I could be down. I'm not that guy. We're on vacation. We're do this whole thing. And this woman comes by and she talks to these people down here, and she's got this thing on her hip and goes, spits out a receipt, and she gives it to them, and they leave. She talks to these people, spits out a receipt, and they leave. And I said, I think they're moving people. Because that actually happened to me when we went to see Paul McCartney. Oh. They didn't have the stage schematics yet, so they didn't know where things were going to be. And we got to our seats, and they had erected a light stand literally right in front of us. You could not even see that there was a stage in Arrowhead Stadium. And they came by and said, would you like to move? And we said, yes, we would. And they moved us. And she came up and said, wow, your seats kind of suck. Would you like to move? Direct quote. And we said, yes, please. So they moved us one section over to the right. So we're a little more, we're still on the corner, but we're a little more in front of it now. And then all the way down into the main body of seats that go around. So we were literally in the 10th row from the stage. Oh, wow. Just not on the floor. We were in the stands. Oh! That may have contributed greatly to how awesome this concert was. Yeah. I'm not going to lie. But I've got video and pictures that I will post at some point. But it was really cool. And of course I was wondering how they were going to do it, because you get two artists of that caliber, and it's like, well, is there an opening band, or how are they going to, you know? And Peter Gabriel came out and did a song. Sting came out and did a song. Then Peter Gabriel did a Sting song, and then they did a song together. And then, I mean, just, it was one of those things. Occasionally the band, I mean, they rocked 3 drum kits on most of these things. Occasionally the band members would kind of float off and on. It's like, oh, I don't have a piece in this one, and they would go off stage. But for the most part, they shared everything. The setup, and everybody played on everything. And there was several of them where, you know, if you didn't have something to do, they would just sit back on the drum apron and they would dance. Sting hung out with the backup singers the whole night anytime he wasn't up on lead, and sang with them. I mean, it was amazing. Wow. And we only got one encore, but they came out and did Every Breath You Take, followed by Sledgehammer. Huh. And it's like, I can't even be mad at you. you end with that, and it's like, yeah. And then there were no hotels. Uh-oh. Denver apparently doesn't have any hotels.
Oh, you had booked ahead of time? You were going to grab something?
No, because we didn't know where we were going to be at because of the whole Cheyenne situation. Right. We weren't even sure that we were actually going to get to go. So we thought, well, we'll just play it by ear. Interesting factoid. The tourism industry in this part of the country is alive and well in the summer. There were no hotel, unless we wanted to drop $600 a night on one Denver.
Well, no one wants to go to Denver in any other of the cold months, that's for sure.
But from Denver, we thought, well, we'll just go ahead and get started, and we'll go to Lyman, which is the next one out. Nothing in Lyman.
So, of course, what time of night is this?
Well, we drove out of Denver about midnight because, of course, we thought, well, the parking lot's packed. What do we do? Well, we could Pokemon hunt. So we wandered around downtown Denver and Pokemon hunted while we were waiting for the parking lot to fill up. We didn't leave Denver till about midnight. I got into Colby about 4 and was like, okay,
Kansas?
Colby, Kansas, and went, I'm looking for a hotel room. I don't care. I'm tired. And the one we got into only had 4 rooms left. And I said, fine, I'll take one. And the guy looked at me real apologetically. He says, checkout's at 11, and I have to charge you full price. Are you sure you want to do that? I'm like, I don't care. I gotta have a bed. I'm tired. So we had to drive all the way to Colby to find a room.
Wow.
Everything. And I said, is there something going on that I'm not aware of? He says, summer. He says, it'll be like this through Labor Day. Huh. I said, you're kidding me. Huh. So be aware if you're driving through this part of the country, book ahead of time. Yeah, no kidding. Which normally I do, but like I said, this was kind of a fluke time. Kind of a fluke. Yeah. But anyway, so we did that, and it was amazing. We also we got all the way up to whatever episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. where they hit Grant, what used to be Grant Ward, with a bazooka, and it didn't faze him. I think we've got like 3 episodes left for the season. Will be current, so it's like. And then we finished season 1 of Arrested Development.
Oh.
So, what do you think so far?
I'm loving it.
Oh, it's hilarious. Isn't
it's really good.
So good. So witty.
And it's I don't know if I've said this before. It's one of those shows that I feel bad because they set up the joke like in the first 5 minutes of the episode. This is the joke, and then you kind of forget about it. And you're going on and on and on, and then all of a sudden, here comes the payoff for that joke, and it's like, oh, I should have seen that coming, but I'm still laughing, So, yeah, we've really been enjoying it. Other than that, I haven't done much because we were on the road.
Yeah.
I started watching Bat Soup tonight. No review on that until I get finished with it.
So look forward to that next week, pretty much.
Yeah. Any news?
No news.
Anybody else do anything before I jump ahead to news?
No.
He's tired. I'm trying to...
No news.
No news.
So feedback.
Any feedback?
Our feedback comes from Robert this week.
Hey.
Hi, Robert.
Hey, Robert.
Feedback from Robert.
He says, guys, I'm sending you a quick note about the next 2 Friday Night Who tweet-alongs. I hope one day you'll be able to check out the Riff Tracks versions of both Peter Cushing Doctor Who movies. As I'm rarely up that late, I won't be joining you, though I might watch each Riff Tracks movie on Saturday. I haven't watched them in a while, so maybe it's time for a rewatch. Yours, Roberts. Which, and he tweeted and Facebooked us that he did watch it on Saturday.
Yep.
The Riff Tracks version.
Well, thank you, Robert. And, of course, for those of you that maybe are newer to the podcast, and we haven't said this recently, yes, we will get around to watching the Riff Tracks versions at some point, but as is the Traveling the Vortex tradition, we have to expose Keith to the raw, unedited, as it was originally broadcast version of these things. So we did just the regular theatrical version, and we will do the regular theatrical version of Dalek Invasion of Earth, or Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
I wonder if that's why the second film didn't do as well.
Is it a mouthful of a title? Like Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice?
That's why I call it Bat Soup.
So is the next movie Dalek Soup?
Yeah, well, no, because there's no soup in it. Bat Soup, Batman, Superman.
Yeah,
See, that works. This would have to be Dalek ad. That I can make work. But, so we'll do the regular one for that next week, and then at some point, well, I guess after this point, you're free and clear.
I can watch the
You
riff
can watch the
track
riff tracks
anytime I
at
want.
any point. Well, on the first one.
first
The statute of
yes.
limitations is
yes.
up on that one. You're not allowed to watch the second
I
one.
got a
yet.
week for the other one.
You got a week to go. You can watch the second one if you want.
Although it might make my commentary for the Friday Night Who a little bit better. Get some material from the riff track.
I thought you had good commentary.
Oh,
I
thank
thought you did too.
You can send us feedback if you want to feedback@travelingthevortex.com or through our website, travelingthevortex.com. There's a send us feedback tab. Or, as Robert did, tweet at us or send us a direct message on Twitter @TravelVortex or Facebook Traveling the Vortex. And, of course, don't forget the Goodreads Book Club. Weigh in on Moonblink, which is the book of the month right now. And, of course, join in for Friday Night Who, too. Friday nights at midnight.
I was there this week.
You were there
You
this
were.
week. We were so proud of you.
Almost wasn't, because I couldn't get the audio to work on my DVD player, but I had...
Oh, that's what you
Yeah.
said at the beginning about had to
Yeah,
relook it back
that's
up.
why I was behind a bit. Actually, I squeaked forward, because I was only a minute behind, so I just squeaked forward about a minute.
yeah.
That's why I was pretty much up with you guys most of the way.
It would have been
Well,
par for the
well,
course.
here-
It
Well,
could have been
45 seconds of that was all credit, so I
Yeah.
didn't miss hardly anything. And plus, I've seen it again recently. So
other than the awesome credit music.
I do
Yeah.
like the credit music. Very 60s.
I'm going to have to see if I can find that so I can put it on my collection of movie credit music CD.
I think I have it, Shaun. I'll have to
Really?
look. I'll have to look. I think I have it.
Well, shall we move on to our review?
Yeah,
Since
let's
we've
do it.
already kind of started. British film legend Peter Cushing plays everyone's favorite Time Lord, and having invented the TARDIS, a strange machine capable of traveling into other dimensions, the Doctor and his three young accomplices set forth on a quest through time and space.
Companions was trademarked.
Apparently, as was another phrase I noticed that wasn't in this film. Their journey takes them into the dark, undiscovered depths of the universe and into the planet Skaro, a primitive world devastated by nuclear war and populated by two warring species, the peaceful tribe known as the Thals, and a life form heavily mutated by radiation, encased in protective machines, a merciless force of destruction known as the Daleks.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one.
It's just an enjoyable film. I mean, it's very much in line with the
It doesn't
TV
stray
series.
too much. No.
Terry Nation pretty much took the script he wrote for the TV series and translated it for film.
Changed. I wonder if some of the characterization changes were Terry Nation or if that was the directors. Like Ian being a bit more comedy and not as man of action.
Well, he's not that's just it. The characterization is what gets to be changed because he's not pigeonholed into an established character.
It's true.
he gets to make the character his own.
All
And
the characters
I
kind of get
think
to make
that-
it their own.
I almost wonder how much of this may have been his original script for it, and maybe they changed it to fit the TV format a little bit
Could
better.
be. I think also though it's I love 60s kitsch. I love it. I eat those films up. Casino Royale. I love that movie. Hammer. And most Hammer films are like that.
Yeah.
I like that style of movie making, and so this has always been right in line with that. And because I can separate it from Doctor Who proper and recognize it for what it is, which is just really a fun science fiction fantasy film,
I sense a dig coming on.
I quite enjoy this movie. It's really colorful. It's got a lot of great music.
It condenses the story in a very good
It does.
way.
The chasm takes all of 5 minutes as opposed to an entire episode.
Even I went back and rewatched part of the Daleks story, and the first 3 episodes take 30 minutes in the movie. I mean, it's impressive how much they condense down into this film.
And yet you don't really feel like you're
you don't miss
losing anything.
Yeah, you don't lose much.
No, it doesn't feel like anything's really cut out of it. Everything in the series is really just kind of expanded on.
Yeah,
kind of broadened
kind
out to make it.
Yeah, broaden's a better
7
word
episodes.
than I was going to say dragged out, but some stuff is
There
dragged
are
out.
some
There's,
things
there's
that are
only
dragged,
one thing
yes.
that's dragged out.
Well, even to some extent, the Petrified Forest at the beginning is, while it's interesting and cool, it takes up a whole episode, and
yes.
it's kind of, okay, well, come on, let's move on.
Yes.
Well, almost a whole episode.
Agreed.
I agree with you, Glenn. The part of what makes this film so enjoyable is the 60s aspect to it, and the colorful nature, and it feels like a B sci-fi 60s film at the time, and I absolutely love those films.
And that's
too.
what it is. It is a B film. It really is a B movie. What I thoroughly enjoy about it is I'm only ever been familiar with Peter Cushing from the Hammer horror films and from Star Wars, and so to see him in a different type
Such
of
a
role
different
as a
character.
doting old man is just a joy. You don't see Peter Cushing at all in this
No.
in this story, and it's so fun to watch. So
And
good.
it's such a different portrayal than William Hartnell does,
yes,
too.
absolutely.
Really?
I thought so.
I thought it was very. It almost seemed to me like that's where exactly they were aiming. Like they showed him the cereal and said, "We want this." He doesn't quite have the hms and the my's, but he's got the rest of the.
He doesn't seem as gruff.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It-
That's
it
just
may-
that he's
maybe
warm and
later
grandfatherly in this.
Yeah.
And Hartnell is never warm and grandfatherly. He is occasionally you get a little bit
Once
of
you get
that.
to Vicky,
But
he's
he's
more.
and he's very in Hartnell's doctor is very. I know what's best. I know what's best. I know what's going on here. I'm going to figure this out. I'm in charge. Cushing's doctor is very team player. I'm the smartest man in the room, but I'm open to suggestions. I'm going to look at things from different angles. I think it's a vast difference from Hartnell.
I guess I can see
And
that.
it's interesting that you say you think that, because I saw an interview that I actually read in a magazine that they had done with Cushing years ago, and he never even saw the series. He had no idea, had no connection
Really?
whatsoever. He knew nothing about it when he took this role. So he took and made it his own. So everything that he got from the doctor that you saw in Hartnell, he got from that script. So
Very
Which in
interesting
some
then.
of the stuff plays very differently than Hartnell did, like the fluid link.
That
and
part in particular is
the way Hartnell portrays that is almost more menacing and more, I don't care what you think, I'm
Right.
doing my own thing.
which I don't think was
And-
initially the intent for the doctor. I
I
don't
don't
think
think so
Terry wrote
either.
it that way either, but it comes across that
Yeah.
way because of Hartnell's performance, which is great. It works out okay for them.
It's a nice way to vary it up. And while there was a little bit of, well, I did that because I wanted to explore the city, it doesn't come across as adversarial or, what's the other word I'm thinking of?
Malicious.
Yeah, malicious.
well, Cushing.
Confrontational
Yeah.
about it all.
Yeah.
Cushing's when confronted with it, it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with it. I did this so we could explore the city. Forgive me. He's
Very apologetic.
properly
Yes.
chastised.
Whereas the doctor in the series always comes across as, oh, I goofed up, why did I do that? You know, and still isn't very apologetic for it. It's more of a, oh, I'm sorry that I made this mistake to himself. He's almost more apologetic to himself for goofing up rather than saying genuinely to all his companions, I did this, I'm sorry. So
Yeah. And almost a bit more of, oh crap, that they got the fluid link, as opposed to that's the aspect that he feels like he goofed up more in the serial than in the movie.
I think the only time that I think Cushing seems most like Hartnell's doctor is when he's trying to convince the Thals to go to war against the Daleks.
Yes.
I think the manipulation that he uses is very much in line with the same way that Peter Cushing does it in this film. And so I think they both come across similar. But other than that, I think it's quite different.
And it's interesting to see how they changed the, what did they call them here? The accomplices. and it's interesting to see the fact that it's the two grandchildren and the one boyfriend in all of this, and the fact that Ian is such a bumbling kind of goof that is the accidental man of action and a hero to the story, but still in that comedic way. It's such an interesting way to change the character.
Yeah.
And while Susan is much younger, kind of still plays very similar, and so does Barbara, because Barbara and Susan almost have that sisterly relationship from the get-go.
I would agree.
There's a little less of Barbara consoling Susan in the movie, but that part doesn't change too much.
Right. I think also Susan comes across a little more headstrong than Susan in the series. Not so much this Susan's a very brave version of Susan. Whereas
I can almost believe her as a Time Lord more than the TV version.
Yeah, I think that Susan in the TV series was probably mistreated in the sense that they were just looking for a screaming teenager.
Oh, yeah.
But damsel in distress type. This Susan really is very, she takes things upon herself. I'm going to do this, when everybody's getting sick from the radiation and she realizes she's the only one that can go get the drugs, she just stands up and says, I'm going to go do it. And, they probably would have tried to keep her from it, except for the Daleks kind of say, yes, she's going to go. And then I think the other one is when they are trying to, when Ian's in the Dalek, and which the hand for the Dalek is much creepier and color than it is in black and white. Although it's very much the same shot. Yeah. Even the just kind of the crawling with the hand type movement, not movement, but like how it kind of looks like it's going to start pulling itself across the floor. But when he's in the Dalek and they're going down the hall and she takes it on her own to, no, I'm not going to go, that kind of the ruse to kind of distract the one Dalek who's going to report them to find out because he doesn't know anything about this prison transfer. So she kind of takes that upon herself.
The one thing with that bit that I kind of missed from the serial was the fact of Ian actually getting control of the Dalek and kind of getting to play the Dalek. I kind of wish that was in the movie, because that was such a fun moment in the serial. The Thals, I think, are very much in line with how they are. They're in characterization wise in the serial. It's just the makeup and not the costumes too much.
Costumes
it's mostly
are pretty much the same. Yeah.
The makeup was
and the blonde hair.
Yeah, it's just seeing them in color just makes them even more alien.
Well, they have kind of a green tinge to them, so they've obviously got a green or grayish tinge to them. So they kind of obviously have some sort of body paint on. But I think the most interesting thing was the detailing of the eyebrows and the eyeshadowing.
Yeah.
I think these Thals, and as you said with the colorization, makes them look much more alien, whereas they look much more humanoid or human in the series in black and white.
Do you know what they reminded me of? Obviously, this came first chronologically, but do you remember that episode of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, the Gil Gerard series, with...
Glad you added all that. I wouldn't have known what Buck Rogers series you were talking about.
Well, there was an old black and white serial. Obviously, I'm not referring to that one, but I could have been.
The serialized version.
The one with the golden man and his son, who actually happened to be his
I do sort of remember that, yeah.
That distinctive... I don't know why. It's a different color even, but just something about it that's what harkened back and popped into my head from that.
They look like 50s or 60s B-movie sci-fi aliens to me is what they look like. That's why I quite enjoy them, I think.
To some extent, they almost feel like they could have walked off the set of Star Trek. I think. The original series.
The original series.
I'd buy that.
Yeah.
Because it's also, they're on the same time period. So, I mean, because when did Star Trek run?
66 to 69.
Yeah, so...
It's also celebrating its 50th
anniversary.
That's right.
So, I mean, it's not too far removed in that aspect.
Actually, that might be kind of visually. That might have been what the director might have been kind of going for. Was that same just that era of look? And I think that Star Trek kind of mimicked that same era of look.
I think so too.
I think that's probably comes across because of the product of the time.
And some of that is because it's affordable to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't require a lot of prosthetics, and it's just makeup and wigs. I mean, it's easy. There's a reason they use that style for so long.
Yeah, this actually predated Star Trek by a year, being 65. But like you said, this
I think it's product of its
time.
Yeah. And that's me looking at it backwards because well, how else would I look at things?
Even the colorful Daleks, I think are really kind of cool in a way. I don't like the big bumpers. That's the one part of them I don't like. I don't like the big, thick, tall bumpers that they have. Everything else on them I like. I like the colors and the claws and the...
Yeah, I was surprised at how many more claws there were than plungers. There was a lot more, and they used them really well.
No, I think the claw makes more sense.
It really does.
And I think probably Terry Nation and the set designer probably felt the same way. These guys really need something a little more opposable than a suction cup.
They had more money to get claws instead of suction cups for the Daleks. Well, I think they probably had more Daleks too.
They certainly had more actual physical Daleks, because as we know in the Daleks there's a bunch of 2D cutouts in the background.
Did you happen to notice that shot when they do the big Nazi victory speech about we're going to explode the bomb and blah, 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 and there's a whole room full of the kind of silver and blue ones, which I assume are the rank and file, but there's a whole room of them, like they actually built these things, and I made the comment, I didn't type it, but it's like, there's not a cardboard cutout or a mirror to be seen in this scene. They actually built all these things.
And the sets in this were impressive, especially that mountainside set where you see the three doors and then you see the kind of rocks and then the
front of the city.
The fact that it then slides away for that big white lights, that was impressive in it of itself.
Yeah. Big sound stage for that one.
Yeah, really, really impressive. I don't know how I feel about the slower talking Daleks and kind of lower register. It took a little bit to get used to. It does differentiate them a lot. And I didn't notice this until I went back after Friday night, since I needed to stay up because I was going to be working the overnight shift. I popped back in because I started Daleks and then picked it back up. They never said exterminate in the movie.
They do not. Yep.
Which is weird. And part of it didn't register also until I read the comic, and the fact that they don't say it there either. And I was like, oh, hey, wait a minute, that was missing.
Right, yeah. I noticed that a long time ago. I'd forgotten about it until you brought it up again, but... it's one of the key things about a Dalek that makes it a Dalek. Yeah. And so it's almost a little disturbing when it's missing.
Yeah, and I think I could kind of get past the cadence and the voice more so if they said exterminate occasionally.
See, I certainly noticed the cadence. I don't think the tone was any different. They certainly used... I think what's the... can't remember the tool that Briggs has now that they used to use back then to do the voice, but they've certainly used that. They've mimicked that as much as they can. I even think the pitch, for the most part, some of them were lower than others, but the pitch for the most part. But I think because they don't get into that hysterics of screaming, that they don't get to that level. And I actually kind of enjoyed the cadence of these Daleks. As something you said that you were having a hard time understanding them. I felt like I could understand them better because they were speaking slower.
And I think it was because I'm so used to the other cadence that hearing it slower is kind of like, oh, wow, okay. I kind of need to focus more.
Get through that statement, please.
It was almost like they brought William Shatner in and hooked him up to the voice modulator for the one Dalek, because there
ring modulator, I think that's what it's called.
Many pauses.
And I think the idea was for audience to be able to understand them easier in a theater as opposed to a TV.
Well, especially when you're looking at an international audience with a film, whereas with the TV series, it's for the most part isolated to the UK, and then anybody that was buying it internationally, but it just wasn't as broad-reaching as this, so they probably felt that they needed to be a little more precise with the words so that you could understand it.
And with the Daleks taking longer to speak, they didn't have to drag out other parts of the story, like a chasm.
That chasm scene.
That's how you do it.
Keith and Freddie, who was questioning, are we going to get a chasm?
I couldn't remember
We're
where
getting a chasm.
I couldn't remember where it placed in that sewer sequence.
Yeah, we're definitely
I remembered
getting a
it was
chasm.
after the swamp, but then we got in the sewer, and I was like, "Whoa, okay."
You thought we were going to get past it, didn't you?
I thought
There's not going to be any chasm. Nope, there's a chasm.
I for some reason thought it was between the swamp to get into that tunnel for whatever reason.
Yeah. No, it was once they got into the tunnel.
Yeah. And as you tweeted, that's how you do it.
Well,
there's not as many of them going across.
Well, that
because
helps
it's only
a
a
lot.
party of 4.
Yeah.
so for those that don't remember, we're referencing it. There's a whole episode segment of.
It feels like
the
an entire
Daleks.
episode.
I think it is an entire
It's
episode.
not the whole episode.
It
but
feels
it's
like
it's a good chunk
episode
of it.
6, isn't it? It's right
Yeah,
before
well,
the finale.
and then it cliffhangs into the finale, doesn't it?
I think literally
it does.
there's
The
a
one guy falling,
yeah.
hanging on the rope.
The
is-
literally
cliffhanger.
hanging on a cliff.
although, am I remembering this? The guy that falls actually cuts the rope and dies. Right? He sacrifices.
I
himself.
thought so.
I
This
don't
guy
believe
actually,
so.
this guy actually falls into another little extra, I don't know, a little wedge, and they rescue him. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's.
I was going to ask you, so
Quite
did you
different,
finish?
I didn't finish
You didn't
it.
finish
I
it
didn't
yet.
get to finish
You'll
it.
have to let us know next week when you go
I
in.
don't know if I'm going to go finish it, honestly. But I remember him
He's over
dying
it.
too.
He's over it now.
Just fast forward through the chasm.
That's what I was
Then
going to
again,
do.
they had like 7 guys with them in the
Yeah,
in
there
the
was a lot
series.
more to get through.
So
they had an
they were
expendable.
expendable.
They had a red shirt.
There's a whole sequence in the original television episode where it's them crossing that chasm one at a time, and it's meant to be big dramatic television, and it just took forever. And so when we got to it here, I'd like to throw out an apology to anybody who follows us on Twitter, because I let fly with something I don't normally in my tweet, and it was like, oh, I feel bad now that I've typed that. So
It wasn't family friendly.
it was not family friendly.
Well,
my
I must have
comment
just blew right past it.
Yeah, I honestly I expected a stern lecture from you. So anybody who did read that, I
Get a
apologize.
Captain America's language.
You would have gotten a language from Captain America.
Hey,
on
let's
that one.
watch the language.
But yeah, no, it's like, oh, there's a chasm. Rats, because I'd forgotten it was there too. It's been so long since I've seen this. Just an all-around enjoyable,
Yeah.
and the computer room
Oh,
with the
that's another impressive set.
the Wheel of Fortune terminal that rotated up out of the the big wheel.
What
yeah.
reminded you of Quarks?
The sound effects.
It was the sound effect.
This-
I keep
it's-
looking at this thing going, this doesn't look anything like a quark. Where's he getting quarks from?
It was before I
though,
could see the computer. It
sound
sounded
was,
like
yeah.
that.
All right,
Well, I've retconned that. I know exactly what it is. The Daleks went out and they found the quarks and they completely dominated them and took them over. See what I did there? Dominated, yeah. And they
They
brought,
put them inside the
they brought all the
computers.
quarks back to their planet and hooked them up, and they're inside the wall doing this, generating power for that computer and chirping, because that's all they're
or
allowed
they
to
put
do.
it in there sideways so that they're doing this to open the wheel and close the wheel.
Oh yeah, see that could work too.
Or turn the wheel this way.
Some of them probably are, and others are.
There's a few of them that are hanging upside down as chandeliers in the hallways.
Well, obviously, if
Some
you're
of those wall decorations did not look like they would have come from Daleks.
obviously if you're a decommissioned Dalek, your eye stock is reused to put in the wall as a camera.
What do you think was running through the pipes? That wasn't
it?
fresh water. That was Dalek innards. We established that later.
That was a great effect to have the eye stalks be the cameras
Yeah.
in the hallway. Well, of course. I mean, it makes
It
sense.
makes the most, yeah.
I was really, I don't know.
But at the same time, it almost cheapened the heroes making that discovery, because we're keyed into it so early on that, of course, it should have been obvious to them
Well, yeah,
that was a
because
camera.
As Barbara's especially walking down that hall, you see them follow her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You see the movement of them. So
But it looks like their eyes, so you would think, oh yeah.
Didn't you figure out there was already a camera in the room though when we saw them on the video screen and the Daleks were watching them? I mean, I kind of guessed there was a camera in there anyway.
Before those eyes moved in that hallway, I figured those were all cameras.
One of the things that I've always loved about the episode, The Daleks, is the architecture of Skaro, the slightly rounded doors and things like that, and the way the doors move. So when we get to the cell, and the doors kind of do
they even to the inside into the front of the building, they did that.
Yeah, when they split open sideways, but also rotate up from the bottom. And my initial thought was, that's so cool. And then he puts the lighter or whatever it is down there to block them when they come back down. And I was watching as they come back down, they kind of have to, because they just barely skirt the flooring in order to position back into the center, and then they kind of rock down into place. And I looked at that and I went, that is so inefficient. I mean, I don't know why that's the thought that popped into my head, but just the design of those doors makes absolutely no sense. And I kind of missed the big rotating hinge door on the end from Skaro. That's like,
although to some extent the splitting in the middle makes a lot of sense because they are kind of triangular shapes. Yeah. If it didn't open all the way, it would.
Well, if they hinged differently, or if something in the way the door frame was shaped, maybe.
Well, if they could have made it so that if the doors had been if the floors had been slotted,
there we go.
But they couldn't have done that because then
it wouldn't have been a roll
right,
over them.
Exactly. Well, so.
So here's a flaw with this thing. So you were telling me the Daleks can build this city, and they can build these travel machines. And sorry, I'm tapping on the thing. They can build all this wonderful stuff. They've got this high technology, and they can't come up with a radiation drug. Okay.
Well,
they're good at
Davros developed the machines, so I mean,
they're good at mechanics. They're not good at organics.
And they locked Davros away, so I mean.
He's down in the basement experimenting on clams.
As much of a Davros fan as I am, and I love me some Davros. And I was completely fine with Genesis of the Daleks coming along and retconning all of the Daleks. It is kind of nice to go back and realize we're in a universe without a Davros. I don't even have to pretend like Davros is the result, or these Daleks are the result of Davros. I like going back to the idea that there was this nuclear war, or neutron war, neutron bomb war, and everything was pretty much, devastated, and radiation is ravaging the planet, and the Daleks figured out to put themselves in casings to protect themselves, and the Thals figured out how to make a drug to keep themselves from getting sick. So it's kind of nice it's kind of nice to just say, you know what, in this universe, there's no Davros.
Simplify it.
Don't have to worry about it.
Although, am I remembering Genesis? They ended Genesis wrong, didn't they? Kind of rise up against him, and I kind of assume they defeated him. So he wouldn't necessarily be in the basement experimenting. He'd be in wherever he went to go to escape.
So you're asking questions for which fandom has yet to really provide a satisfactory answer.
Okay, all right. I'll stop thinking about that.
The last shot of Davros
even in Destiny, we don't really get a clear answer as to how he escaped.
The last shot of Genesis is his hand ready to stop the machine, and he gets blasted, and the screen goes black and white and does the whole Dalek effect. And then the first scene we see of him in Destiny is he's in a disused lab covered in cobwebs, but still alive. So
he got blasted. Well, I think the best explanation we've ever gotten is he got blasted, but the life support in his machine kept him alive.
Yeah, and that's what I always kind of assume.
That's kind of what I think everything has landed on in the idea.
Sure.
That being said, I don't think you need a Davros in this universe.
No, you don't. I agree with you. I kind of like the not trying to wrap my brain around where Davros is during this whole story.
I don't need to know where Davros is. I just need to know there were giant clams. That would make me happy.
I didn't see a one of them, Shaun.
They were there. They were in the lakes. They were in the sewers. They were in the canyons.
The giant clams aren't even in the Daleks. They're not even the TV movie or TV series.
I know, because they're cast-off mutations from Davros. But
which you can almost, some of the lines they give in the actual episode, you can almost think that they could be out there, out in the petrified jungle, or in the swamp.
No, I think if they're in the water, whatever that creature in the water survived. If they're outside of the water, they ended up like that big old giant monster dog that Ian falls on and cracks. So they're all petrified if they were above ground.
Yeah,
and they're
so
all,
they'd be in.
if they're in the swamp.
Well, and they
they're in
definitely
the
talk
lake.
about the swamp having mutations in them.
Yeah, so.
Speaking of, the shot where Ian goes
Sure,
down.
the water was irradiated, so yeah, you would still have mutations.
Yeah.
But the dog was petrified because of the bomb, of the blast.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Ian goes down and goes, oh, I can wash some of the mud off. And he puts his face in the water. And we get that reverse cameras underwater looking up at him. And his eyes all bug out. And he starts to scream. I've always thought that was the coolest shot. Even as a kid, I was like, wow, I'm terrified of whatever this is. Just his reaction to it.
And the fact that you never actually see it.
Yeah. Genius.
Really, yeah.
Love that. A lot of cool direction,
Except,
I think, in this.
in the TV series, we do see a little bit of the monster in the water, don't we?
I think
don't we
so.
see the hand, a tentacle,
A tentacle or
You
something.
see something, yeah.
Keith will let us know when he finishes.
Because I think we see the
guess I
guy
can get to
also
that,
get
but also
the
tired
thaw
of
that
that.
gets pulled in. I think we actually see him go in, don't we?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
Because we have an excess to get rid of.
But we don't. Yeah. Well, we know he goes in the movie, but we don't see it. It all happens on screen.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't know. He may have just screamed and ran away.
There's movements! Ah!
There's not enough of us anyway. Run away.
This is a dumb plan. I need water for the trip back. I'll get it.
Speaking of that petrified creature in the jungle, it's kind of interesting that it falls apart when Ian in the movie does that, and in the series it's just robotic type thing instead of petrified.
Was it robotic?
Yeah, it was metal.
Huh. I thought it was just hard. I thought it didn't fall apart because it was just petrified. It was hard.
Well, no, they talked about it being metal and how
Oh, do they?
how he and the doctor theorizes about how there's some metal thing keeping it, or that would have kept it alive, and
so
that part died.
Maybe
of
it was a Dalek experiment.
That could have been.
One of the first travel machines.
Yeah.
They were trying
Or
to get outside.
they wanted
the
a
city.
dog. And they needed
And it got out.
Yeah, and they just got
The
stuck
dog was
in-
getting mutated, so they put it in its own metal casing, and it got out of the
I
city.
do that for Cody. Yeah.
Of course, if they'd have realized that if they'd have just made bipedal versions of that, they could have got out of the city. Instead, they put themselves in big giant tanks that ran on static electricity and couldn't get outside the city.
We don't see what they mutate into, so maybe they don't. I don't know.
Oh, the claw. Let's talk about the claw.
Well, we did.
Oh, did we talk about
Yeah,
the claw? I
sorry.
missed the claw.
You
Oh,
wandered
okay.
off.
Sean had a quick errand to run. Yeah, we can talk about the claw again.
It
It,
was-
looks creepy in color.
It was cool.
And as I was telling Keith, it's almost the same shot you
not
get
like-
from the series, from the TV
And it almost
series.
looks like the same
It's
prosthetic.
just that same.
Really? I don't remember
reach
the one on
out
the TV
from
show
underneath
having
it.
nails. And
Uh-huh, I
actually-
believe it did.
Did it
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
I thought it was just more of an
It just
appendage.
wasn't green.
Yeah, I mean,
Although it
that
may have
really-
been green, we just didn't see it.
It probably was. They probably just pulled this.
Really? Well, it's
Terry
gonna-
probably tucked that away and stuck that offset. And
Remember me? I'm Fred's hand. Apparently, it's been long enough since I've seen the Daleks. Then that I need to go back and rewatch it. I thought it was an
It's a
appendage.
cliffhanger, isn't it? On the hand.
I don't think so.
Well, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Is it?
I
Yeah,
think
it is.
it goes to credits. We see
Yeah.
the hand come out, and it goes to credits, and then nothing anymore. And they don't resolve it because who knows what happened to that Dalek? I thought that was going to be a big plot point when I first saw the Daleks, and nope.
That's
just
one thing
want-
going back and rewatching that. There's not a lot of recapping from that story.
Just wanted to tease you a little bit.
Just give you an idea what might be in the case.
V baby.
That's kind of reminds me of V.
Remind
Maybe
me
it's
of a
more of
gremlin
the scaly
hand.
look. Yeah. Oh, it does.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it even looks like. Yeah, you're right. It does. I hadn't thought of that, but it does.
Without the webbing. I don't think Gremlins had the webbing.
No.
Well, Gremlins 2 may have.
Because they mutated. A bunch of them did.
Spider Gremlin.
Anything else about the Doctor Who and the Daleks?
I quite enjoyed it. I think it might be one I would pick up on DVD.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable.
It's a
film. I'm
fun.
glad I
It's a
enjoyed
fun
it.
movie. It's one of
I
those.
almost want to have Shaun order a steelbook for me.
a sharp looking
Looks
steelbook.
so
isn't it?
nice.
Well, and some of the bonus features on the Blu-ray looks really good too.
Yeah,
that you could watch
wish
them.
I wish I could watch them.
If you get a region-free Blu-ray player, which
I'm
includes the Dalek Mania documentary.
Yeah, that's cool too.
I'm curious.
Actually, the
if we
library
would-
has that, by the way, if you want to see that.
I actually watched it long ago
I
when
did
it was
too.
on Netflix.
Oh, okay. I watched it back when it was when I got it from the library one time.
I might have to go back and revisit it because now I'll understand some of what they're talking about.
Well, they interviewed the gal that played Susan in it quite a bit. So
it makes me wonder if our enjoyment of it would be different. Was it not a rehash of an episode? I mean, if it...
You mean if it was a news story?
Well, not even necessarily that. If Doctor Who wasn't necessarily a thing, let's pretend in this universe that Doctor Who does not exist.
Or had we seen this and then later came to the show?
Or vice versa, yeah. Either one. Would we still find this as kitschy and cool and robotic monster 60s fun?
I thought I'd said this before. I actually saw Doctor Who and the Daleks before I saw the Daleks.
Really?
Yeah, because I saw Doctor Who and the Daleks probably in high school, I think it was. Maybe even a little after.
Were you aware of Doctor Who as a show?
I was aware of Doctor Who as a show.
Okay.
Though. So I come to it from a different perspective. But I was comparing, the first time I watched the Daleks, I was comparing it to the movie, which is the reverse of what we're sort of doing here. And so, yeah, I kind of came from it from that perspective and stuff. Now, again...
Were you thinking to yourself, man, they got a lot of people to get across this chasm?
No. I think it had been enough years. I think it had been enough years that I had forgotten. But the interesting thing about it was I do remember going to the movie after having been familiar with Doctor Who as a kid and knowing that this is all wrong. So I still did have that impression of, oh gosh, this is not the Doctor we know because this guy's Earthbound and he's a scientist. And so I did get that aspect of it. But as far as comparing the two 1-to-1, originally I had seen Doctor Who and the Daleks first, and then now I saw Invasion of the Daleks before I saw Dalek Invasion of Earth 2150.
2150 AD.
So,
not
so
to
I
be
saw
confused
those.
with 2150
I saw those
BC.
in the order. I saw those in the order that you guys are familiar. But I saw Doctor Who and the Daleks back in high school or something.
I think to a large extent I would still enjoy it just for that 60s sci-fi aspect of it.
I think so too.
But I think I get a lot more enjoyment out of it because I'm familiar with Doctor Who, and it's such a kind of a what if type movie from that perspective.
I'm glad you got a kick out of it. I was a little concerned actually going into it that you might be like, eh.
It's very much like The Time Machine. It's very much like, as far as the 60s film, The Time Machine. Yeah. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Just those
Forbidden
type
Planet.
Forbidden Planet. Those just kind of kitschy B-movie type. When you think of B-movie, but those 50s and 60s colorized sci-fi films. This one has a little bit more of that comedy, but element to it.
And lava lamps.
There were lava lamps. Yeah.
I do have to say, I don't...
they looked very scientific.
The console room, I'm not as impressed with.
Okay, so if you guys remember...
too cluttered.
Back whenever we started this thing, and I think it was Doctor Who the movie that we were discussing, episode 8. And when it came on TV, I said, I kind of go through this anytime there's a new credit sequence that I'm apprehensive until the TARDIS shows up. And then I relax and go, oh, it is my Doctor Who. This is not something weird. So watching this, and they get into the backyard, and there's the TARDIS, and I had my kind of moment and went, oh, okay, yeah, it's different, but it's still there.
It
looks like Eleven's TARDIS.
Well, then they got inside. The first time
I noticed that, I looked at it and went, wait a minute, that's Eleven's TARDIS. And it's even got the St. John's ambulance
sticker on it. But then they get inside of it, and I realized, no, it's not the TARDIS showing up that makes me comfortable, it's the console room. Because this does not work for me at all.
It's seeing that time rotor.
Yeah, I needed a time rotor.
I guess maybe it's because I've seen this so many times. Maybe I come to it from a different aspect, but I like this console room. I don't like this in our universe of knowledge.
It works for
I like this for this film.
Yeah,
I like this for some dotting grandfather who's this scientific genius who has somehow stumbled across inventing time travel, and this is what it would look like in somebody's shed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what
it doesn't look like.
No, it's so appropriate for this film. So I like that. I like that it's very Earth.
It works, but
it's not alien.
Logically, it makes sense to me, Glenn. It's just emotionally, I go no.
Well, because even I think
the lever just alone, that's a bad design choice.
Listen, as soon as Ian comes in the room and he's introduced to Peter Cushing as this is my grandfather, Doctor Who, everything's out the door at that point.
Oh, I know, but still emotionally, That's still in the first
No,
10
you
minutes.
shot my emotions. I went, nope, this is not even connected. I mean, that's why I'm so okay with the fact that I don't need to retcon this into my universe. This is its own thing, because from the get-go, he's Doctor Who, and that does not work. Regardless of the 1960s crediting Doctor Who as Doctor Who in the series.
I can retcon it.
No.
I can retcon it.
You know that
this is one of the adventure tales that the Fourth Doctor wrote.
That got adapted into a novel.
Doctor Who and the Daleks.
Yeah.
And they adapted it incorrectly
I'll do
into
you
a
one,
TV movie.
I'll do you one better, and I think you guys are familiar with this. Stephen Moffat actually toyed with the idea of putting this in Day of the Doctor. And what it was to be this is a movie in the universe, and it's based on the idea of the travels, or the knowledge of the fact that there was this guy. Somebody had made this into a film based on the actual Doctor, but this is as good as they got it right. And that actually Wotan, that in the War Machines, because it calls him Doctor Who, that's where the knowledge was gotten, was from Wotan back in the 1960s in order to develop this. Somebody had got the information from Wotan, made a movie called Doctor Who and the Daleks, because that's where they got the information, and that's why.
Or maybe Wotan got it from the movie.
Well, that was the other way. But Wotan, because Wotan's, he was going to tie it back to the reason why Wotan calls him Doctor Who, is because and I think it's the other way. He's utilizing the information he's got on the Doctor from Doctor Who the movie, and so Stephen Moffat was going to canonize Doctor Who as just its own thing as a film, the Doctor Who films. But he couldn't do it.
They couldn't get the rights to it or something.
Remember what it was,
remember correctly, because he wanted to put the posters in the Black Archive.
Yeah, the posters were supposed to be in the Black Archive. So close. I would have been fine with that kind of canonization.
Oh yeah, that's almost the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
Other than the Big Finish kind of gateway we've gotten now with House Shaun had.
Don't let me forget to tell you something off show or off mic. Sorry, listeners. Gotta tell them to do this now, or maybe it might be something down the line. So just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Sorry, just canonizing something just made me something I've been working on for a while. Just hit me. Not now, but the other night, and I just remembered it. So. All right.
Work is progressing. There's work.
Work is progressing. Well, I've got a foundation of an idea. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
Anybody that's new to the show is like, what are they talking about?
All will be explained later.
Just got to get Shaun to write it. All right.
Man.
Anything else on Doctor Who and the Daleks? Let's go ahead and get this show wrapped up.
Should we touch on the comic?
Let's talk a little bit about the comic, because we do have a scan of the Dell comic that we were able to get a hold of. Came out in the 1960s as well. Released pretty much near the time of the release of the film, to capitalize on the film. It's about a 30-page comic, and it really just kind of condenses the story even more so. No chasm in the comic.
Absolutely not.
What'd you guys think of the comic?
I liked the no chasm. I sound like a chasm hater. I really don't mind it. I don't have anything personally against chasms.
It's just the use of chasms in the story.
It's a good story for a comic book. It's a really good story for a comic book, and I think it translates really well off the page. So, I mean, they're able to kind of streamline it into a one-off story, and it works really well, I think.
And I don't know if it's because it came out so close to the movie, or because the design choices that they did in the actual movie. The art in this seems closest to anything we have read of comic-wise from this time period.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Like it always looks like Peter Cushing.
It does.
Although sometimes it looks like Vincent Price.
Yeah.
But
every once in a while, I'm watching Cushing in a horror film, horror film, and seeing Vincent Price too. So I suppose that works.
Wow, that really does look like.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think Susan's the only one I think that looks the most different from her character on the screen.
Yeah,
kind of looks like an older Grand Moff Tarkin too.
With a mustache.
With a mustache.
Despite the TARDIS in this being green.
Yeah, the TARDIS is green for some
Although
reason.
now my argument isn't valid because there are blue Daleks in this.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to be an ink issue.
You thought blue ink was cheap, was too expensive. So I don't know why they made it. Even when it I thought maybe it was just that one page got it wrong. But then when it's
at the very end,
at the very end when it's dematerializing or spinning out into space, whatever it's doing, it. I think the interesting thing, some of the parallels that we thought were interestingly different, was the fact that in the Doctor Who the movie, when they're coming up with a way to thwart the Dalek that's coming to bring them the food. It's in the film. It's Barbara who decides that they could use the food to put on the eye stalk to blind it temporarily. And in the comic book, ironically enough, it's Bud, which it is in the series,
goes back to,
the Doctor's the one that decides that's what it's like. They took that one heroic moment from Barbara away and gave it to the Doctor.
She doesn't get much else to do in this.
But for the most part, I think most everything else is the same, with the exception of
one thing I found that was kind of oddly different, which made it almost not as plausible, is the start button.
Yeah.
Instead of being a big lever, now it's just this little tiny button. Yeah. You got to whack his head on.
Instead of like running into the lever,
he's got to fall backwards.
He just falls backwards and hits his head on the button. Another thing's different. It doesn't take any convincing to get the Thals to go to war with the Daleks in the comic book.
They're ready to go.
They just say, we'll fight for your freedom and ours. And in the comic book, or in the movie, as well as the series, they have to trick the Daleks into, not necessarily trick, but do a little bit more convincing the Daleks that Thals that they're better off fighting the Daleks.
And special appearance by Red Dalek.
Yeah, in both.
Friend of the show in his first TV role. Yeah, it's just an enjoyable story anyway around. I know I seem to remember we may have been down on it just a little bit when we reviewed the Daleks originally, but I think a lot of that stemmed from Chasm and
the bloated nature
of 7 parts. That of course we watched it all in one chunk.
We
didn't realize it was 7 parts.
We thought it was 6, and when we just kept going, we were like, how long is this?
I do remember that. Did you guys know it was 7 parts? We do now. So yeah, doing that for one of our Friday night Whoathons, all 7 parts in one night, starting at midnight.
That wasn't even Friday
night. It wasn't
even
even an official one, though. It was late.
No, we didn't tweet it.
We didn't tweet along.
We started at midnight. It was earlier than that.
Was it earlier than midnight?
It was when I got off work on a Friday, I think.
Yeah, so I think it was like at 11 o'clock time. Maybe we might have wound up getting started.
We probably started at 11:30 or 12.
Yeah.
It was way early in the morning when we finally finished up. I remember that. You guys didn't have to go home. I did. You guys were already.
I still did.
Oh, were you still over?
Yeah, I wasn't living with you.
You weren't living with me at that point.
No.
That's how. That's right. You were over at the.
That was like
that place.
The Tuesday after the Oscars that year.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, look at the memory on you.
Well, it's the first time Sarah and I kind of just outside of that's the first time after Oscars that we hung out. We sat and watched this epic long. So.
And she still likes me. I can't figure this out.
I mentioned to her, I'm going to be rewatching that here ahead of. You want to watch it with me? Expletive, no.
Honey, it's our second date.
That's what I tried to spin it as. She's like, nope. We don't have to do it as late as night. Nope.
All right, well, let's move on and finish this show out.
I will say one other thing. I got really super excited. I know you want to finish the show. I got really super excited when they brought in the cutting torch Dalek to cut through the elevator door.
That affected the movie. The movie was really impressive.
It was impressive
in the series, though.
But the angle at which this thing was shot, it looked like it had one claw coming out of its middle with a flame on it, and I thought for sure it was Special Weapons Dalek. And then it turned, and it had a gun on the other end. I was like, "Aww." Massive disappointment.
The top was completely wrong.
Didn't matter.
Precursor to Special Weapons Dalek.
I was all set to retcon all kinds of things away, and then it dashed all my hopes and dreams.
No.
But I have high hopes because I don't know that I've ever seen all of Dalek Invasion Earth 2150 AD.
Oh, yeah.
And there might be one in there. So.
Afraid not.
All right. Don't
hold your breath.
Don't hold your breath. I've seen that one fewer times than I've seen Doctor Who and the Daleks. But. All right. Well, be sure to join... be become a Patreon supporter of this show, to do so,
Patreon spoiler.
Supporter of this show. To do so, you can go to our website, travelingthevortex.com, and on the right-hand side of the page, there is a link. You can become a Patreon subscriber. Patreon subscribers, 100% of what you donate to Patreon, you can choose how much you donate to us. But 100% of that goes right into this show. If you are already a Patreon subscriber, we continue to thank you for that, and we continue to be able to plug along because of those donations. Also, there's some links on that right side of the page as well to various sponsors, and that portion of those proceeds also go back into this show as well. If you'd like to contact us, you can do that on various forms of social media, which are
Facebook, Traveling the Vortex, Twitter @Travel Vortex. We're on Instagram. Is that one Traveling the Vortex also?
Yep, that's Traveling the Vortex.
And of course the Goodreads Book Club, and we are on Google Plus if you are.
You're just going to keep doing that. I'm going to cancel that account so that you can't do
it.
We're not on Google Plus anymore.
It's links to our Gmail account.
Yeah. I wouldn't go to Google Plus because we haven't updated in like a year and a half, 2 years.
You can contact us through Google Plus. We won't see it.
Keith might. He still uses Google Plus.
I go browse there occasionally when
Do you check on the site?
I go to my
Google own one, yeah.
But I check our Traveling the Vortex at gmail.com
Oh, do you? Okay,
account weekly to make sure there's no emails
I just had this horrible thought that there's like 10,000 emails.
No.
Feedback. People going, why don't you read my letter?
I check that weekly.
Okay.
All right. If that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
And thanks for listening. I don't know why. I really don't know why you still are, but thank you for doing it.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.